As we discussed this morning, it's difficult to have a conversation about politics or even international development these days without someone fairly early in the conversation piping up with the magic words, the mantra, civil society. So you might think that people are clear when they use those terms, or what they mean when they use them, and why exactly civil society is so important to the future of democracy and development. But clarity and rigour, I'm afraid, are the two things which are most noticeable by their absence in this debate. It's not necessarily a bad thing. I mean, this morning we were all sort of happily disagreeing with each other around those issues of definitions. There was no consensus, and there probably never will be. But that's okay. But we do need to be clear with each other what we do think, so that we can have a conversation. Otherwise, we'll be talking past and under and beyond each other. So I'm not going to try and sell you the view of civil society and governance. I'm just trying to try and help me and you to to find our way through this very confusing territory, and then you can make your own mind up about what you want to believe and how you want to take it forward. Let me give you some examples, recent examples. Civil society means, quote, fundamentally reducing the role of politics in society by expanding free markets and individual liberty. Where do you think that came from? Close. It's the Cato Institute in Washington, D.C. It's a libertarian, spectacle, actually libertarian think tank. Or, quote, it means the opposite. Civil society is the single most viable alternative to the free market and the authoritarian state. It's the polar opposite of Cato's view. Where did that come from? Any takers? Yeah, nice. The World Social Forum, its own definition of civil society. Or if you're more comfortable in the middle ground of politics, civil society constitutes the missing link for you in the success of social democracy. It's central to third way thinking, as I said in my previous remarks, and supposedly compassionate conservatism in the USA. In academia, it's been christened the chicken soup of the social sciences. New Zealanders are far too sensible to buy chicken soup books, so it probably doesn't mean this is a cultural reference. But in the United States, these sell in millions, and they give you a tremendous amount of emotional comfort with no content at all. And so academics are saying the same thing is true about civil society. It's become something to latch onto. If you can't explain a phenomenon, it must be down to civil society. The chicken soup argument. Adam Seligman, who's actually a serious academic, so I'm assuming this is tongue-in-cheek, he says civil society is the new analytic key that will unlock the mysteries of the social order. Jeremy Rifkin calls it our last, best and only hope. The United Nations and the World Bank say it's the key to good governance. We've seen that in poverty-reducing growth. David Robinson, has David? Yes, David, he gave a wonderful story. I can't resist this one. But the Prime Minister of Laos, as is true, has just decided that civil society will be an important thing in the future of our country. By central diktat, civil society has been called into existence in Laos. It's a fairly typical comment. Civil society is also the reason for war against Iraq, according to administration officials in Washington. Listen to this. A new report from the Washington-based Institute for Foreign Policy Analysis, that's a real institution, says the United States should emphasize civil society development in order to ensure regional stability in the Middle East. Regional stability in the Middle East. Forgetting that citizens groups, let's face it, going back 2,000 years or more, have been the prime cause of healthy destabilization in every society since the pharaohs. Some claim that civil society is a specific product of the nation state in a certain period of capitalism. You can't have one, regardless of what you think. I'm looking at some of the Pacific Islanders here. According to some people, you can't have a civil society because you haven't passed through those stages of statehood and capitalism. Others say ridiculous. Civil society is simply a universal expression of the collective life of individuals that work in every country at all stages of development, but obviously it's expressed in different ways according to culture and context. That's more, I guess, where I am. Some see it as one of three separate sectors. We've had that argument this morning: the state, the market, civil society. Others say, you're crazy, look around you. That's a completely artificial view of the world. All of those institutions are deeply interconnected with each other, even interpenetrated and dependent on each other, there's no firewall between civil society, state and market. That would be impossible. Is civil society to preserve a group predefined as democratic, modern and civil, in inverted commas, against some standard set of normative or philosophical criteria? Or is it home to all sorts of associations with lots of different characteristics? Militant Islam, American militias, traditional associations based on inherited characteristics, not uncoerced, as many people were raising this morning, like religion, ethnicity, things that we're born into, that characterize pretty much the whole of the world, apart from very small parts of the United States and Western Europe. Are families in or out? And what about the business sector? Is civil society a bulwark against the state, an indispensable support, or dependent on government for its very existence? Is it the key to individual freedom through the guaranteed experience of pluralism, the American view, or a threat to special interest politics because of the increasing agglomeration of single-issue advocacy groups? Some people in America would say that's pretty much where we are. Is it a noun, in other words, a part of society, an adjective, a kind of society, a space, an arena for society, or is it all three? Very confusing. Can you build a civil society through foreign aid or even foreign intervention, or is that just another imperial fantasy? You can see the point I'm heading towards. What do we do with this concept that seems so insecure, so elastic, so chameleon-like, so unsure of itself? The definitions are akin to nailing jelly to the wall. And in any case, does it really matter? Except for a small band of obsessives like me and a few others probably in the room who study this stuff for a living. I mean, that would be a good argument. But as some people have already pointed out, if it's so difficult, why hang on to it? Throw it away. Find another language to talk to each other about the issues we want to talk to each other about, and forget the whole civil society thing. Why wouldn't we do that? It's certainly true that when an idea means so many different things, it may mean nothing at all. So either the time has come to be rid of it, as I say, or at least, and this is where I'm going to follow the argument, be clear with each other about the different interpretations in play and how we feel about them. Consensus is impossible, but clarity is not impossible. And clarity is very important as a springboard for a better conversation about this stuff in the future. And that's one way of avoiding what I would call the pitfalls of using civil society as a political slogan, or as a shelter for dogma or ideology or undeclared values and interests, which is something that's going on in the civil society debate. Some people are uncomfortable with recognizing that the same phrase can mean radically different things to different people at the same time and be okay. But I'm fine with that, which is why I'm not pushing an artificial consensus. I think that's actually crucial to moving this whole debate forward, because it gets us beyond false universals and entrenched thinking that there can only be one way, one truth, one light, and so on. And for anyone who wants to sort of discard the concept completely at this stage, I would say not yet. Hold on for the next 53 minutes, at least. Don't throw the baby out of the bathwater. I think that's too soon, because I hope to show you in the next 50 minutes or so that ideas about civil society can not only survive, but actually they can prosper and be really useful in the kind of rigorous critique that I'm going to mount.